My name is Claudia Moreno, and I'm the Southern California Outreach Manager here at Small Business Majority. I will be the moderator for today's presentation. Our California Deputy Director and National Hispanic Outreach Manager, Xiomara Peña, will be presenting on various resources Small Business Majority has to offer a little later on this presentation. We are super excited to present this webinar along with one of our partners, Crowdfund Better, where founder and CEO Kathleen Minogue will share her expertise and important information about crowdfunding. Kathleen is a crowdfunding educator, speaker, and advocate. After running her own successful crowdfunding campaign in 2012, she founded Crowdfund Better to guide entrepreneurs, small businesses, and nonprofits and creatives how to use crowdfunding strategically to attain their financial marketing and business goals. And with that, it is my pleasure to share more information on Small Business Majority. So Small Business Majority, our mission as an organization is to understand the top-line issues of importance to small businesses and find ways to advocate on a local, statewide, and national platform on some of those issues in order to level the playing field for small businesses. As you can see on this deck, we are a national nonprofit. We have offices throughout all of California, all of the United States, such as Washington, D.C., California, New York, to mention a few. A few issues that we focus on are things such as access to capital, healthcare, retirement, just to name a few. We also have our entrepreneurship program that brings resources and education to small businesses owners in key areas of running and growing a small business. A little bit about our model. The way I like to break it down is the work that we do is into 3 buckets. Research. We conduct a lot of research on small business owners to make sure we understand the trends that are going on. The second bucket is education. We partner with a lot of business organizations to hold seminars and roundtables to educate small business owners. The last bucket would be advocacy. We want to hear the voice of small business owners and ensure that their voice is being heard on a state and federal level. Now I'd like to turn it over to Xiomara. Zio?
Good morning, and thank you, Claudia, for that introduction. And so moving on, talking about the work that Small Business Majority does around access to capital, one of the things that we found in our polling was that about 90% of small business owners do feel that the availability of credit is truly a problem. Oftentimes, we find that the availability of capital is crucial for small business startup, survival, and growth, and inadequate access to capital can continue to be a top issue facing the small business community. Additionally, we know that small business bank lending is down about 20% since before the Great Recession. And so when we think about access to capital and what that means, crowdfunding can definitely become one of those forms of which small business owners and communities can access startup capital. We also find that for women and minority-owned businesses, almost half of these businesses can be owned by a woman of color, and they face various significant barriers. They're typically smaller in size, they start with less capital, they have lower approval rates for bank loans at smaller dollar amounts, and they're more vulnerable to predatory lending. So the good news is that there are more funding options available now than ever before to help you start and grow your business. And just to give you an idea, I know we'll be mainly focusing on crowdfunding during this webinar. However, there are so many different sources of funding. Most importantly, we hear from small business owners and entrepreneurs that they first go to their family and their friends to seek out capital. And then also they utilize their personal and business credit cards. Venture capital can be an option, especially if you're in a high growth, tech-based business. Angel investors, economic development agencies, startup programs, business plans, competitions, which actually, if you are part of a chamber, you should reach out to them and see if they are offering something like this I know here in California, the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, for example, does a Shark Tank model pitch contest during their national convention where they have investors and a couple of other reward programs after you submit a couple of things. Or I know that Duarte Chamber of Commerce has done a specific micro grant program for business plans. So essentially a business owner will submit their business plan, those go through a review process, and then a winner is selected for a small micro grant. And typically those are $500 to $1,000. So it's not a whole lot of money. However, that is something that may be available in your community. So definitely ask around. We also offer information on bank loans, SBA loans, microloans, community banks, credit unions. There's newer types of lending, especially in the online space, like online cash flow lenders and online marketplace lenders. And we'll talk a little bit more about those two options later on in the presentation. So as you can see, there are various different sources of funding. And before you start looking for capital, we recommend answering these questions. And all of them are really important, but I would say that the first three are extremely important, especially if you're looking at debt financing. So what do you need the money for? How much money do you need? How long will it take you to pay it back? Especially, again, if you are looking for some type of debt financing. So if you're talking to a lender at a bank, they're going to want to know this information. But also if you're thinking about structuring your crowdfunding campaign, you do need to know what am I going to use this money for, and how am I going to how much exactly do I need? And this could be something that you can sit down with a technical assistance provider, whether it's the local small business development center or another business development resource that can help you structuring and looking at your financial planning in order to understand, what kind of capital you're looking for. Also, if you haven't been in business, so if you're a startup, crowdfunding can also be a really good opportunity to start marketing your business as well as obtaining capital, just because it is very challenging for startups and those entrepreneurs that have been in business for less than 2 years to access traditional lending options. And so there are a few CDFIs that can provide startup capital and some other programs that are available for those businesses. However, it can be challenging, and so again, we recommend working with a technical assistance provider to figure out what type of capital is best for you. And so we're going to continue talking about the crowdfunding overview, and then I'm just going to frame this, and then I'm going to be passing it on to Kathleen. So crowdfunding at a glance. In crowdfunding, entrepreneurs raise capital by reaching out to a large number of people in their online social networks to donate or invest in their business through a third-party online platform. Now, entrepreneurs can create an online campaign about their product or their service, indicate the amount of money sought within a set period of time, so it could be 30 days or 90 days, and how the funds will be used and what contributors or investors get in return. The best campaigns are those that inspire people and maximize reach across large social networking circles, and the platform typically will take a fee, on average between 3 to 10% of the money raised, and so also account for that. This isn't a new idea, but it is becoming more relevant just because of the ease and access to technology that we have now. And for an entrepreneur, a great idea or something that you can think of, fidget spinners, for example, and fidget spinners and fidget cubes were a big thing last year, and that actually really was propped up by a crowdfunding campaign. And so you can spend some time looking at several different campaign options and see how other folks have used it in the past. Now with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kathleen, the founder and CEO of Crowdfund Better, who is going to continue to share more information about crowdfunding. Kathleen?
Thanks, Theo, and thank you, Small Business Majority, for allowing me to share my passion, which is crowdfunding, with your entrepreneurs in your community. The way I think about crowdfunding, and I've been in the crowdfunding space for the last 6 years, is that it's really the new old funding. It's old-fashioned community barn raising using new digital tools. So there has been hundreds of years of individuals supporting other individuals in starting their small business. But in the past, you could only reach out to the people who were geographically close to you, or the 100 names you had in your address book. And because of digital communications like email and social media, now you can reach out to hundreds of thousands, millions of people, and get the support of a larger number of people, which is what makes crowdfunding possible. This idea of, instead of one person giving you thousands of dollars, you can have hundreds of people giving you $25 a piece and still get to the numbers that you need to launch or grow your business. But the key here is that crowdfunding platforms don't create those connections and relationships themselves. If you put a campaign up on a platform like Kickstarter, they don't necessarily bring people to you. You have to use online and offline communications to turn the trust and connection you have with your network into funding. Next slide. And one of the myths around crowdfunding is that it's free. Well, there are low barriers to entry in order to crowdfund, but it really is about an investment of time. Time creating and nurturing your network, both before you launch, during your campaign, and after, and also time to deliver on what you've promised, which includes if products or services, or if you're investing, running a business that will return financial investment to your investors. Next slide, please. But the value of crowdfunding goes much farther than money. Crowdfunding has a slew of non-financial value, including the ability to raise funding while you're working on the nuts and bolts of your business, the ability to test and refine ideas before you solidify your business plan. You can generate proof of concept and market validation, get customer feedback on a product before it's even manufactured. And you can create a public proving ground before having to invest large amounts of capital. In addition, crowdfunding can help unlock other types of funding. Many investors get very excited when they see a crowdfunding campaign that has been successful. If you can think of it as, on the one hand, there's a person with an idea, and on the other hand, there's a person with an idea who has proven it out in the world. And if you were an investor, you'd probably want to invest in the one who has proven it in the world, and crowdfunding provides that proof. It also is a stepping stone to lending. It can help you generate your equity injection and working capital until your business matures or generates enough revenue to be able to get a loan, a traditional loan. Next slide, please. The crowdfunding landscape is comprised of different types. And when crowdfunding started, the first platform was founded in 2003, there was really only one type of crowdfunding, but it's become a little more complex. So I'd like to explain the different types so you can see how your idea or business fits into the landscape. And three of them are just hybrids of things you're already familiar with. So there's donation crowdfunding, and that's for personal causes. So if you have personal need or you have a situation in your life where you could use the support of your community, and then nonprofits and social enterprises can use this type of crowdfunding. There's crowd lending, which is peer-to-peer lending. And then we also have investment, so traditional investment, but using online platforms, and that's the transformational part of the crowdfunding and investing. Next slide, please. The fourth type of crowdfunding is really a new type of funding for businesses and creative ideas. That's rewards crowdfunding. and it contains elements of pre-sales, fan support, friends and family funding. The first platform was founded, as I said, in 2003. Platforms like Kickstarter alone raises about $1.5 million a day for the projects that launch there. And it's really a very good way for businesses to get funding of less than $50,000, and it has the highest success rate for funding goals under $10,000. Next slide, please. Let's dig just a little bit deeper. How do these platforms work? So let's go through them one by one. So as we said, donation is fundraising for personal needs or causes or 501c3 nonprofits. Who can use it? Individuals, nonprofits. There are fees associated with it, and they're generally a percentage of what you raise. So there aren't upfront fees, but there are fees, a percentage of what you raise will be, the platform takes that. It's sometimes between 0 and 10%. And platforms also give your backers the opportunity to cover those fees for you. Next slide, please. Rewards crowdfunding, as we said, is often it's pre-sale. So, for example, you have a product and you have a prototype and you don't know how you're going to manufacture it. Well, what about offering it on a rewards crowdfunding site, asking people to buy it, and then taking those orders and using that capital to then pay for the manufacturing of that product? Who can use it? Individuals, pre-startups, startups, existing businesses, nonprofits. Again, these platforms take a percentage of the funds as fees. There's usually no upfront cost. And the key here is these backers are not investors in your business. If you had a product and they prepaid for it, you deliver the product, they are not investors in your business. But these backers also provide you with great opportunities to get feedback, like on your marketing materials, on your branding. They provide you with an opportunity to refine those things because you develop a relationship with your crowdfunding backers that's a little bit different from your typical e-commerce transaction. Next slide, please. Peer-to-peer lending is when individuals provide other individuals with the funding. They loan them the funding that they're looking for. So it's individuals, not banks. Who is it for? Individuals, pre-startups, existing businesses, startups. The key example of a platform like this is Kiva, and they offer through their platform the opportunity for you to do a peer-to-peer loan at no interest up to $10,000. And that's really powerful when you are, as Ziamara mentioned, under 2 years in business, need some capital, and you are just not ready for traditional lending. Next slide, please. The fourth type is the newest type of crowdfunding. It was only made legal by the Jobs Act in 2012, and the rules came into effect after that. This one is a little more complicated, a little bit higher barrier to entry, because in this case, you are taking money from investors. Investment crowdfunding allows you to offer equity, debt, or revenue share securities to individuals. And in the past, you could only really do this for what they called accredited investors. Those are individuals with a net worth over $1 million or $200,000 or more in annual income. But now these regulation crowdfunding rules allow every person to contribute up to a set amount, invest I should say. There are 3 different tiers. The first one is regulation crowdfunding, or Title III. That allows you to raise up to $1,070,000 per year. There's Reg D, 506C. That's a more traditional type. And then Reg A Plus is for more established businesses for raises up to $50 million. Each of these tiers comes with a certain level of due diligence, filings that need to be done. So in the case of investment crowdfunding, I highly recommend that you speak to a lawyer before you pursue this type of crowdfunding to really understand how it's going to affect your business. And you may not be able to speak to your your small business lawyer. You may have to seek a securities lawyer because investment crowdfunding is relatively new, and not all legal professionals are as comfortable as others with this kind of fundraising. Next slide, please. So who is it for? You'd say, oh, it's investment, so I can't be a startup. And the reality is that a large number of the companies that raise money this way are startups. They are 0 years old. But what you need to have is an investor strategy. You need to know what kind of relationship you're going to have with your investors. And there's a formal process for outlining that when you file to do one of these offerings. Again, your backers with investment crowdfunding are investors. It does require legal and financial compliance filings with the SEC, and you have to use a FINRA-approved platform. So it's transformative because it's the first time in 80 years that the average person on the street can invest in a startup business, but it does have different requirements than rewards or donation. Next slide, please. So if this information feels a little overwhelming, the good news is Crowdfund Better offers a crowdfunding cheat sheet that walks you through the different types of crowdfunding, different platforms that are legitimate that you can go and investigate whether you like the way that they provide their services. And if you visit crowdfundbetter.com and sign up for our newsletter, you'll be sent a digital copy of this cheat sheet. We offer it in both English and Spanish, and you can indicate that when you sign up, and you'll be sent also our newsletter in either English or Spanish. Next slide, please. So who can use crowdfunding? And this, to me, is the most transformative part of what crowdfunding brings to the table. Any stage of business, from someone with an idea who wants to raise a couple $1,000s to develop a prototype, to a startup who has their company, at the beginning, but they need some capital in order to take it to the next step. You can be an established business, say a restaurant that has an incredible hot sauce and they want to be able to bottle it and sell it, but they need to raise the capital in order to walk through that process of manufacturing. Any size of business. You can be a solo entrepreneur, you can be a small business, you can be a larger business. Even Fortune 500 companies use crowdfunding to test products and services. Any kind of business. It could be B2C, so business to consumer, business to business, online, bricks and mortar, local, international. Some types of crowdfunding are better suited for some kinds of businesses than others, but there is a landscape that you really can find a possibility to explore. There's also low barriers to entry. So crowdfunding success is not dependent on your FICO score, on your repayment capacity, on the amount of equity injection or collateral that you have. It's really about the investment of time and energy and nurturing of your network, creating a great campaign, and really nurturing the community that you gather around your business. There are also few limits on how much can be raised, from hundreds to millions of dollars. Now, as I said, the most common amount that people raise is about $10,000, but with better guidance and better preparation, you can raise more capital. Only investment crowdfunding has some limits on how much can be raised. And here's some really fantastic news. Women and minority entrepreneurs are more successful at crowdfunding. So Ciamara mentioned at the beginning that there are challenges for minority entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs. But crowdfunding gives an opportunity because your backers represent the reality of the world, the demographics of the world. So your product may be appealing to a certain group of people, and an investor may not see the potential, but the general consumer population might find your good or service very appealing. And so they can provide you that support. Next slide, please. So when I said who can use crowdfunding, one of the things that conversations I often have is, but is it right for my business? And that's one of the services that Crowdfund Better provides. We have a crowdfunding assessment package which allows us to help you look at crowdfunding for your business. It helps us give you some data about businesses like yours, what kind of campaigns have they run. And it also helps us to give you a little bit of education, because the statistics are that over 50% of campaigns never reach 10% of their goal. And the reason for that is that they don't understand how it works. So with even a small amount of education, you can increase your chances of success exponentially. Our job, we really want to help you beat those odds. And this service provides you both with data-backed information, but also we get on the phone with you and give you 30 minutes of one-on-one conversation so that you can ask your questions. So with that, I'm going to pass back to Zio to talk to you about what you can do to succeed.
Awesome. And just, Kathleen, if I could also ask you to share an example of like a business owner that you guys have worked with that has been able to grow utilizing information around crowdfunding platforms. If you want to talk about maybe with Lev Market and Cafe or another example, that would be helpful.
Sure. I'll give two examples. One is a woman entrepreneur. She was making pasta out of the converted laundry room of her house. So she had this small little business, and she had all these customers who wanted her to be able to get her pasta on store shelves, but she needed a commercial kitchen for that, and she needed to increase her production capacity. So she could have looked for a business loan, but instead she said, I have all these customers. I wonder if they would pre-buy pasta for me, and then I can raise the money I need to move to a commercial kitchen. And then when I move to the commercial kitchen, I'll deliver all the pasta that they pre-purchased. And she did. She raised over $25,000. And she was able to move to a commercial kitchen. And now she's grown beyond that. She's actually moved to a bricks and mortar location that she's cohabitating with another business. So she used that not just as a launch pad for the funding, but she really pulled her community closer, and she has this very avid community. And you can also find her product on the shelves of supermarkets, Whole Foods. So she's moved her business forward. That's one example. The other is a social enterprise that its goal is to create healthy food, a safe space, and employment in South LA. And Andrew McDowell, the founder, he had a tough time raising money for this business. He had no background in food production. He was a startup. It's a low-income neighborhood. And really, lenders said, sorry, we can't really help you. And so he started talking to his community. He went out and took surveys and got to know and spoke at churches and community groups and bus stops and said, well, what do you want in your community? And they said, we really want this healthy food. We want this space. So he launched a crowdfunding campaign to begin the process. He knew he needed probably about $1 million to get the whole way. But he said, but if I can start, if I can get a little bit of capital, then I can quit my day job and focus full time on making my dream a reality. His campaign launched. After months of preparation, he raised over $100,000 to begin the journey. After that, he raised about $250,000 from impact investors. And the interesting thing is that a quarter of the investors who invested in the business, Andrew didn't know before the Rewards crowdfunding campaign. These were people who came in through his Rewards crowdfunding campaign and said, can I do more? And he said, well, sure, invest in the business. And they did. And with that capital, he was able to approach lenders. It wasn't an easy journey. 14 lenders said no. One said maybe. And he said, okay, maybe, let's work on this. And the lender worked with him. And about 6 months to 8 months later, He got a loan for just over $600,000, and he was able to open the cafe, and they just celebrated their 2-year anniversary, the With Love Marketing Cafe in South LA.
Awesome. So as you can see, there are different examples of how business owners can utilize crowdfunding to meet their needs. And just to give you an idea, we have also included this crowdfunding escalator here. And so you can see at the different levels of or stage of your business what type of crowdfunding platform may be suitable for you. So at the idea stage, maybe you want to think about donation or rewards type of platform or campaign. If you're already looking at validating your business, for example, you may look at debt equity or expanding your business equity or debt again, or the maturity stage. Maybe you want to look at institutional investment or traditional forms of capital. And the amount of capital that you need and the stage of your business is very critical to deciding which model to use. So again, if you're seeking capital under about $10,000, you may want to do a donation-based campaign. Or if you're looking for between $5,000 and $100,000 plus, you may want to do a rewards-based campaign where you are, again, maybe thinking about pre-selling items, or if you're product-based, for example. And then we have a couple other breakdowns. So the next step, we're going to be talking about steps to structuring a successful campaign. And so the first, apologies about that. So the first thing you want to do is definitely have the right product or the service that you're going to be offering, and build a thorough plan. How are you going to start? Are you going to record a video that shares your story? Are you going to start building some momentum before you actually launch and talking to a couple of folks and letting them know that this is coming down, that you're putting this together? Building some campaign assets, and so, if you need a videographer, do you have someone in your network that can offer the service to you for free or for low cost? Executing your campaign. So as you're putting this up on the platform, how do you select the right platform, post it, and stay on top of it during the time that it's being posted? And then your post-campaign follow-through and engagement. How did you use the campaign to engage with your community? So this is the crowdfunding campaign timeline. You should typically spend about 60 to 90 days planning and focusing on honing in on your strategy. How, again, this would be an assessment on what type of platform would your business or company be best suited for. What is the story that you have to share? Writing it out. If you're doing a rewards-based, what are the levels that you will be implementing into your campaign? What will you be delivering for a $30 investment into this business, for example? And then once you are looking at pre-campaign promotion, you should spend about 60 days doing that. The campaign execution would last about 14 to 30 days, and then the post-campaign follow-through, it's about 180 days and ongoing. And throughout this entire time, you want to do some ongoing marketing communications, and so it's definitely recommended that you have a professional Facebook page or a business page on Facebook. If you have Instagram, if you're actually creating products, or if you have some type of visuals that you can share, even for hairdressers. I mean, you can take pictures and show to your clients some of the work that you're doing. So if it's art, if it's hot sauce that you're making, these are things that you can share with the community and start developing a base that you would then engage with once you launch your campaign. And so during this entire time, you want to make sure that you're being active in your marketing and communication strategy. Now, the planning and strategy stage, there's several different things that you can do. First, research. So make sure your product is a good fit for crowdfunding. Market test your product before the campaign. So again, maybe it is collecting surveys or trying to gather a roundtable of why folks would invest in this or donate to your specific product. Select the appropriate platform. Oftentimes we see that business owners may not be able to find the right platform for them, and so they'll do a donation-based campaign when more than likely it would have been more helpful for them to have a reward-based campaign because they have an actual ability to give their clients and to give folks that are investing in their crowdfunding campaign some type of reward. Look at your competitors and make sure that you're positioned correctly as well. And so I'll give you two examples. One is there was a business owner and entrepreneur that came to one of our events, and she was in the process of purchasing a farm in Northern California that would be solely dedicated to grass-fed cows. And she wanted to raise the cows and then sell the meat and what have you. And so she has some experience doing this, and she's had about, I think, 15 years working with, and her family that lives in the middle of in the Midwest with similar business types. And so she understands the business but wasn't sure how she can fund this because she was not eligible for any type of traditional loans. It was going to be very challenging for her. And so she was wondering, maybe this is something that I could crowdfund for. I don't know how I would do it, though. Would I be pre-selling meat? Would I create a program where people can do that? Or do I just do a donation-based campaign and talk about the idea behind why grass-fed meat is wonderful for populations and communities? And so she started looking at a couple of different platforms, and she had found that there was another company that did the same type of thing, grass-fed meat. They pre-sold, and essentially they raised over $30,000, and I believe it was on Kickstarter. And so this gave her an idea of, oh wow, well this crowdfunding thing may be an option for me, and she started thinking about how she could continue her research and structure her campaign effectively. So it's definitely encouraged that you go on these platforms and spend some time looking at how folks are pitching their business and structuring their campaigns. For the next step is to build a thorough plan. So set a realistic funding goal. Do you really need $150,000, or should you start with $15,000 if it's your first crowdfunding campaign to see how it goes and how it unfolds? Build your campaign team and determine roles. Who will be in charge of the description for your crowdfunding campaign? Who on your team is going to be in charge of all the frequent social media postings that will have to be done once the campaign is live? Who on the team is going to be ensuring that everything, once the platform does go up, there's an option for folks to ask questions, and so who will be monitoring that? So definitely make sure that you're assigning roles so that you don't lose momentum during your campaign. Plan your campaign finances. So again, understand there will be, typically most platforms will require some type of transaction fee or some type of fee in order for you to be able to, once you raise the money, there's typically a percentage that will be taken by the platform, and so plan for that. If you do need $10,000 for your espresso machine, for example, and your goal is to only raise that $10,000, maybe you should plan to raise $12,000 for that extra, to give you that extra cushion of what the platform will be taking. Develop a good reward levels. So if you are creating a reward-based campaign, you would want to think about, okay, For $5, I'm going to give you a special shout-out on our Facebook page. Or for $25, we're sending you a branded mug. If you're actually selling your products, let's say I'm developing coffee. For the $25 level, I would send you 1 bag of my coffee beans. And at the $50 level, I'll send you 2 bags. And so you want to definitely give folks something that is rewarding to them. And again, spend some time looking at reward levels for different campaigns and what folks typically give out. And then set your campaign timelines. By what date will your campaign go live? By what date will you have your video done? By what date will you have your description done, etc. And then create your campaign assets. So create a captivating video. It should be between, I would say, 2 to 5 minutes. And this is going to be something that can talk about the product itself, the service that you're selling, or your story. And so I talked about fidget spinners earlier, and so I'll talk about the fidget cube because that was a really good video that they created. And they did so by implementing their personal story, adding some humor, adding a little bit of they also added the personal touches, and so they indicated the reason that they developed the fidget cube was because as young adults they had struggled with feeling anxious and the high anxiety, and by fidgeting and having some type of tool in their hand that they could fidget with, this would allow them to refocus their efforts in other things. And so that's something that definitely captivated their audience to be able to fundraise effectively for their business. Have a business backstory, have some product images, create a press kit, a campaign website, or a landing page, and then have email capability and social presence. And so make sure you're on your very active in your social campaigns, in your social media campaigns as well. So some reward considerations. The key to create an incentive to donate or lend for different types of individuals to maximize your pledges. So pre-orders, think of early delivery, limited editions, special recognitions, and services. Consider between 3 to 8 tiers of rewards, and really ask yourself what makes your company unique. And so Kickstarter does have a list of possible rewards, and once you download our PowerPoint and complete a survey to download the PowerPoint, you will be able to click on this link in order to read all the options that Kickstarter put together. Some pre-campaign promotion. So make sure you're building that pre-campaign momentum, supercharge your social activity, use your traditional marketing to begin gathering emails for the campaign start. Get some professional help if you need it. Again, you can contact a local small business development center that may be able to help you in defining how you can think about marketing before you launch your campaign. Engage your community and create a pre-launch buzz. The next step would be to execute your campaign. So engage online and offline, send out a press release, stay on top of your production, continue the momentum and communicate often and well. Reach out to media, bloggers, guerrilla marketing, grassroots methods. And so you want to, again, make sure you're utilizing your network. You'd be surprised at the folks that will invest in you given the opportunity to. So it could be someone that you know on a personal level or a professional level, or someone that just found your product or your campaign because someone in their network shared it on their Facebook or Instagram. And a tip, the beginning and end of the campaign are when most funding happens, so put in the extra effort during those times. The post-campaign follow-through. Make sure you send thank you messages and share the outcome of your campaign and provide the status of next steps. Oftentimes people are contributing to a campaign because of it feels like an investment that is being made into a business. And so having something as personal as just a thank you note via an email or a note if you're collecting address information, maybe you want to mail something out. But that can be very helpful in just having that sense of community or relationship with your with folks that are contributing. And nurture new relationships. These are folks that are investing for a reason, even if it's $10 today. Perhaps this will be a returning client that will be purchasing your product online or visiting your coffee shop twice a week. And so start nurturing those relationships. And then think about equity considerations. There's a lot of conversation and moving conversations around worker-owned businesses right now. And so if that's something that you're interested in learning about, definitely send us an email and we can connect you with the appropriate resource for that. Some success factors for successful crowdfunding campaigns are these 5 items. The quality of the idea and the pitch, the strength of your network, a strong committed team, key content and documents, so having those things prepared in advance, strong marketing campaign, and incentives as well. Here are some common crowdfunding mistakes. Folks will say we underestimated the time commitment involved. We didn't adequately test our campaign. We launched before we were ready. Last Friday we actually spoke with a small business owner who is in the process of seeking VC investment, venture capital investment, and she indicated that one of the biggest mistakes was launching a crowdfunding campaign, and for her it was about the timing. They were too early and they launched before they were ready to really properly communicate their business. And so this is something that we hear oftentimes. We also can hear we didn't consult with legal counsel. So again, as Kathleen mentioned, it's very important, especially to think about what, especially if you have some type of product that is patented, or if your product requires some intellectual property, you want to be able to protect yourself in those situations, and so consult with your legal counsel in advance. We also hear we didn't account for taxes and fees. We had little traction, so we gave up. We blamed it on the platform. We didn't realize how important the video was. We only spent a little bit of time thinking about that. Those are some things. And then you can ask yourself, is crowdfunding right for your business? And these are some questions that you can use to facilitate that conversation with yourself and your team. Do you have a loyal following? Do you have a strong social media presence? Are you looking to engage an audience of potential customers? Do you have a compelling and inspiring story? And why should backers support you, and why now? Those are some really good questions to be able to answer in advance. Now I do want to spend, just to switch gears here and spend just a quick moment talking about alternative online lenders, just because this is something that as you're doing research on crowdfunding, you may also come across some alternative online loan options that are available for small business owners and entrepreneurs. And these are essentially a new breed of online lenders that are innovating small business lending, expanding new options for entrepreneurs by using simple, streamlined application processes and quick approval and delivery of funds. A lot of them use technology and new sources of social data to assess risk. And online lending currently is largely unregulated at this point. And so what we'll see is they typically have higher interest rates than banks, and not all online lenders are equal. And some players mask very high rates. And so we definitely recommend that for all of you, please do your due diligence and proceed with caution when you're looking at online loans. Another thing that we want to encourage you to find out more information about is around merchant cash advances. It may seem like an option for small business owners in terms of seeking capital. However, it can, I would think about an MCA as a very last resort. You should be very cautious of deceptive and aggressive sales or advertising. So keywords, but red flags, I think: fast cash, no credit score, no collateral needed. Also, properly plan out your cash flow if this is something that you do decide to take on. Especially with some of the online lenders, you'll see that they are directly attached to your debit card systems, and they will take out every day a percentage of the sales that are coming in, and that's automatically withdrawn from your account. With a merchant cash advance, they are processing your credit card payments. And so again, there's fees involved for that. And so just make sure you're properly planning your cash flow so that you don't run across an issue where you are being charged overdraft fees and other things like that. And carefully review and understand the fees, terms, and penalties. Here at Small Business Majority, we're actively engaged in the Responsible Business Lending Coalition that is seeking to promote these the Small Business Borrowers Bill of Rights, the BBOR, and it exists on 6 principles, and we feel that all small business owners should have the right to transparent pricing and terms, the right to non-abusive products, responsible underwriting, fair treatment from brokers, inclusive credit access, and to fair collection practices. So this is something that we are encouraging at the national level as well as at the state level, our legislators to understand that this online lending being unregulated is a problem. There are a lot of small business owners that are going to community development financial institutions, CDFIs, after they've already received a product in the online space, and they're going to get that loan refinanced because they're coming across an issue with the repayment process. And so we put together a checklist for business owners on how you can make sure you are seeking out the right loan for you in the online space. So be sure to ask, what is interest rate or other applicable rate like an APR? Are there any upfront fees? If so, where do they go? Are there payment amount? What are the payment amounts and frequencies? Are there any prepayment penalties? What's the full cost of the loan over its lifetime? And you can definitely find a variety of different resources, especially since today we're focusing on crowdfunding. There are several different resources that you can check out to continue to learn about your crowdfunding options. So Kiva, CrowdUnite, Fundable, or GoFundMe. We also have a resource, which is an online platform via Venturize, www.venturize.org. It helps with providing resources that can help you navigating the lending process. Resources on Venturize also include a location-based map of technical assistance providers. So again, where can you go to get free or low-cost small business development assistance? We have several different providers in there, and you can do a zip code search to find a provider near you. We have a loan comparison chart and events also that may be in your backyard. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Claudia Moreno, our Southern California Outreach Manager.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of great information shared by Zio and Kathleen. Thank you so much for sharing. I know we're running towards the end of the hour, so real quick, if you want to learn more about Small Business Majority and the work that we do, feel free to join us at smallbusinessmajority.org. There we have a lot of, you'll be able to see a lot of upcoming webinars or in-person presentations near your area, and also just how you can personally get more involved with Small Business Majority. I also provided my email and my phone number, so please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions specifically to you. So with that, I will open it up to questions. We do have a few questions lined up here. So I will start off with the first question asked is there a ceiling on this type of lending?
All right. So the only one that does have a ceiling is the investment crowdfunding, is the regulation type of crowdfunding. Is that correct, Kathleen? Do you want to answer that one?
Yes. Really, the regulation crowdfunding has a ceiling of $1,070,000 per year that can be raised, and then really, I know people are thinking about the high number, but I really want to encourage you to think about the low number. There are only under 200, I think, campaigns that have raised over $1 million using rewards crowdfunding. So there's a much greater number that are raising small amounts of capital. And to that, I want to say you can crowdfund more than once. So you can raise, like Zio, you mentioned someone who's looking for $150,000. So you could raise $15,000 the first time, and then look for $50,000 the next time, and so you can build in order to reach your numbers as well.
Thank you for that. The next question is, what are the cons on this type of funding? What is the downside on this type of funding versus normal channels? And how's the payback system?
Well, it really depends which type of crowdfunding you're using in terms of what do you pay back. With donation crowdfunding, often what you give people is, if you're a 501c3 nonprofit, you give them a tax deduction form. If it's a donation, it's a thank you. Rewards crowdfunding, you deliver on whatever it is you promise in your campaign. With investment crowdfunding, it has to do with what you offered as a security. So if you offered debt, you might have offered to pay back a certain interest rate over a certain amount of time. If it's equity, it could be that you offer dividends. And so it really depends how you structured your offering. With lending, say with Kiva, you just have to pay back what you borrowed. And the downside, it's a lot of commitment to building relationships. And many small business owners are wearing a lot of hats. And what I see is that they become overwhelmed because they don't have enough time. So really the downside is if you don't have enough time, then you either have to get more people to help you, or you might take a longer time to do your preparation.
Awesome. Thank you for that. The next question is, does your services fee come out of what is raised in addition to the crowdfunding fees, or is it a fee, or is your fee a flat fee prior to working the campaign?
That's a great question. Crowdfund Better doesn't work on percentages. The platforms take fees. We are completely independent of the platforms, meaning we don't take any kickback, so we always refer you to the best platform for you. Our fees are flat fee, consulting and education fees. And they start small, and you can get as much support as you need. So the first service, that rapid assessment, it's $75. You may take that assessment and say, I have everything I need. If you don't, then the next service is a strategy session, and so you will be well aware of any fees and what those costs are before you begin.
Thank you, Kathleen. I know we're reaching towards the end of the hour, so we have a few more questions. But yeah, and we will also send the deck and the PowerPoint presentation to you all after as well. So the next question for you is, what are the tax implications of the reward model? Is the money a sales transaction?
The answer is yes. That is income to you. So the real concern is if you, say, raise money in December and you don't spend it until, or plan to spend it until January of the next year, that money is going to come as income in, say 2018, and then, you'll have the deduction in 2019. So you really want to think about planning. This is why it's important to think about taxes and fees. Really, you'll be able to, with rewards, you should be able to mostly deduct the expenses against that income. But yes, it does come as income to your business. And so another consideration would be, do you want to think about your business entity before you crowdfund? Do you want to be a sole proprietor, or do you want to become an LLC or a corporation, depending on the scale of your business?
Thank you. And last question as we wrap up this webinar is, as a service idea, what is a good reward for contributors since there's no physical product?
That's a great question, because I think digital rewards are really powerful. So you may not have, say, a jar of jam that you can hand someone, or a new tech gadget. But you may have intellectual property, things that you know. You may be able to provide services. Even in product-based campaigns, I've had restaurants that have named dishes after people, and that's been the reward. So there are a lot of ways to look at rewards beyond the physical product, and that's the kind of work that we do, is help people figure that out.
Thank you, Kathleen, for all those questions, answering all those questions. So we hope this was helpful to you all in understanding the funding options for your business and giving you a starting point. We also have an in-person presentation and events throughout the country conducted by our regional outreach managers. So as mentioned before, feel free to visit us at smallbusinessmajority.org, and also feel free to reach out to us personally. Please use it as a resource. We do want to hear from you because that will help us do our job in advocating for small businesses and bringing resources that are helpful to you. So with that, thank you again for taking the time out of your busy day. We hope you have a great rest of your week. We recorded the webinar and slides are available. We'll send that to you as well. And this will conclude our webinar. Thank you so much, everyone.